welcome to the latest in our series of IG Lives. We are talking to the movers and shakers in the world of multicultural children's books, diverse literature. And today I am very excited. It's a special treat for me because someone that I have worked with for a long time. I have reviewed so many of her books over the years, and we've never actually spoken face to face before. Hi.
Hi.
So good to see you. This is Ajanta Chakraborty. Thank you so much for being here. I was just saying that we've known each other and worked with each other for years, and we've never actually spoken face to face before.
I know, right? It's bizarre. Yeah. I feel like I know you so well already.
I know, right? I know. And now we're meeting the old-fashioned way on IG Live. Yeah.
There we go.
I know. This one is going to be so fun because like you said, I feel like we already know each other, and I have to remind myself we haven't actually met in person before. Yeah. And I just love your books. Before we get started, I just want to say as a programming note, we already know next week we're going to be interviewing Amanda of Miss Panda Chinese, who does something kind of similar to what you do for Indian culture. She does for Chinese culture and language. So it's going to be a nice kind of segue into that one. But for now, why don't you go ahead and just give us an introduction for those that don't know you about what Culture Group Kids is about and your book series especially.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Ajanta Chakraborty, like you mentioned, and I am the co-author of a children's week series called Maya and Neel's India Adventure Series. We've written 12 of them. Oh my gosh, you have 12.
Oh yeah. Oh, I have. I was running around the house this morning and I was like, I wish I could say our books are really organized because I have so many. I managed to find 5 of them, but I know I have more. Yes.
That's amazing. You got 5 out of 12. That's a pretty good number.
Yeah, and I know we have more. This is what I could find this morning. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry. No, I'll just show a few as you're talking.
Oh, there you go. Yes. So yes, the books are basically about getting kids excited about India, right? Whether they are Indian, non-Indian, it doesn't matter. A lot of books are festival focused just because kids love to celebrate. I mean, we know that they talk about their birthday only about for 1 year until the next one. So they love celebration. And so
my daughter always tells everybody she's almost 6. And it's like, oh, really? When's your birthday? It's like, 8 months away. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why so many of our books are focused around celebration, because there's such a great way to get kids really engaged and wanting to participate. And then, of course, we have a few around places like Mumbai and Delhi. You just showed Mumbai. And then, of course, we have a fun one on Indian wedding just because. But yeah, that's the goal is, essentially to get kids really excited and engaged, whether it's their culture or not, to wanting to learn this. That's the goal.
And one of the reasons that we scheduled this when we did is because, if I'm right, Ganesha's birthday, which this is one of your more recent books, that's coming up. Is it Saturday or Friday? I can't remember. Is it Friday or Saturday?
It is Friday. You're absolutely
Friday. Okay.
Yeah, it's a 10-day celebration. So we love multi-day festivals. So
nice.
I just feel like we as a culture, we're never happy with just one day. We just keep extending it as much as we can.
Yeah, why not?
Right. And so the 10 days begin this Friday. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, so how did you get started? I mean, because from what I understand, when you originally started, back when it was called Bollywood Groove, yes, it didn't even have anything to do with books, but it kind of evolved in that direction. How did that happen? And how did you even decide to pivot towards this from your corporate job you had before?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We've been on a crazy path. So yes, I was a techie, hardcore techie. I mean, I was like Sun Microsystem Research Labs. This is as geeky as it gets. Silicon Valley, working with hardware, software, all of that stuff. And then in I believe it was 2009, my husband got into Kellogg at Northwestern. So we kind of wrapped up our life in Bay Area. We were in Silicon Valley and we came over here. And, I was kind of the one supporting him through his MBA. The moment he graduated, I'm like, I'm done. Now you're going to be the one. Dad, I'm going to go start my own venture. And that's how Bollywood group started. Again, I had no experience. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, we're just going to go in there. We'll see what happens. And so I started the dance company. And it was initially actually only focused on fitness. So we only did Bollywood fitness. And it was amazing, the response. Then we added the kids classes. But this was and I was so stubborn because lots of people told me, you should just teach dance classes. Kids will love that. I was like, no. They need to get some cultural context behind what they're doing. And of course, the books weren't there. So I would make these sad little PowerPoints by myself. I would print them out. I would hold them in front of the kids and say, look, this is what you're dancing about. But I would see their eyes light up. And I was like, oh, they love it when it becomes more meaningful. And so we continued in that format. The kids' classes grew like crazy. We expanded 30 plus classes a week. All of that great stuff is going on. And then it was actually Vivek, my husband's idea. He said, why should they have to come to your classes to consume the cultural content? You know, they shouldn't have to. We should be able to spread that information around the world. And so that's kind of when the ideas of the books came about. Again, we knew nothing about it. Just like the dance company, just jumped into it. So we call ourselves accidental authors because that was our plan. And we were like, okay, let's figure this the whole thing out. Diversity wasn't such a big conversation yet because this is like beginning of 2016. A lot of it changed after that. But at that time, we were like, we're just going to try to do this ourselves as opposed to waiting for a big publisher to pick it up. So we went the self-publishing route. We figured out from everything on how to publish a book. And yes, we've been writing like crazy. And before you know, we've written 12 books already. But it's been a wild ride. Like we totally were like bringing it out.
And now, I mean, would you have ever imagined if someone had told you 20 years ago, this is what you were going to be doing, or when you were a kid, did you ever have any inkling that you were going to be writing children's books?
Not even in the least. Now, I do have a storyteller in my family. That's my dad. And he was, I think I might have a little bit of it in my genes. He was the most incredible storyteller. You won't believe this, Liana. So he would come home for lunch he had a factory job, and he would come home for lunch and he would start telling us a story right after he's had his lunch. He's so tired. So halfway through the story, he would fall asleep.
Oh, poor guy.
He would wake up and start the story exactly from where he ended.
Wow.
I still do not know how he did that, but I feel like I have storytelling in me. I do love it, but no, not in a million years did we know that was going to become my career.
And why do you think you've had such a response to it? First to the dance classes and then to the books. I mean, what need do you think this is filling?
Absolutely. So parents, so there are two different groups, right? One are the parents of South Asian origin. They want their kids to connect with their culture, right? And there are so many ways to do that. You could go to a temple, you could read books, you could try different things. But the one thing that is 100% essential is fun. And if you can't teach them in a fun way, all of your efforts are wasted. That's it.
Right.
A 10-year-old has an attention span of an ant, right? I mean, let's be real. Getting them to listen to a whole story, getting them to get up and dance with you, that's, I think, what we've been finishing over the last, more than a decade, is how to make it fun for little kids. And I think this is why the response has been good. Whether it's books, whether it's dance classes, whether it's my story time, it's so much about, can I make it exciting for them? Can I make it fun for them? And I think we might have struck that note through everything that we do.
Yeah, and one thing I have to say when you were talking about the ages is that I think it's so great is they work for so many different ages, because I have mine range from 5 to 11. And actually, when I started reviewing your books, they were even younger than that. And they just work so well because my youngest one, she loves the monkey. How do you say his name? Is it Chintu? Chintu?
Chintu, yes.
She loves the monkey. She loves the picture. She loves following the big story. Right. So for the most part, you'll have, like the big storyline that you're following, and there's Maya and Neel, and what are they going to do, and following along. But then you have also the pull out bits of information with a lot more detail. So my older son, he always grabs the book and he wants to go sit and read that. And then he'll ask questions, and it'll kind of like lead him down a path of wanting to know more about that festival. Like the latest one on Ganesha, he was like, oh, I wanna, like he really wanted to just read that story about why does he have an elephant's head, you know, and he kind of analyze it. So
Right.
it really works. Like if they just want the big picture and the story and like the characters, that's fine. But if they really want to dive deeper,
Yes.
all that information is there to kind of get them started, which is brilliant, I think.
You're so right. That was one of the things. I didn't want to write something that was very superficial. I wanted
Right.
to make sure there was whatever concept we explored, they knew everything about it. So when we wrote Diwali, we wrote all 5 cities, not just one. And somehow that's caught up as well. But yeah, that's exactly. The other thing we did was to keep our content 100% non-religious. Because then what happens is that nobody feels intimidated by your books. You know, they will never read it and feel there's a conflict between what their beliefs are and what the book is trying to promote. And so that was one of the things that we made a very conscious decision that all of our content will always be non-religious. It will focus on the cultural aspect of things. But yeah, hopefully we've written something that is good for a wide age range, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and like you said too, it's good for kids who have the Indian hair or South Asian heritage, or ones who have no exposure to it, and this is the first thing that they're learning about it.
Yes.
It's a really great introduction because it does give you an overview, but it's not superficial. You can go deeper. They don't, like I imagine, especially for kids who come from South Asian families, they don't want to read something and be like, well, yeah, I already knew that. Tell me something I don't know.
Right.
You know, it has a lot more information than maybe they would have just gotten from their family. So I love it. Yeah. Now, how do you go about it? So like you said, Diwali, you really dive into all the days of it. How do you figure out, because there's so much about each different festival or weddings. I mean, they're just such big topics. How do you decide what to put in the book, and kind of like, what's that process when you decide, okay, we're going to do this festival? How do you narrow it down and figure out how are we going to make this work in a story?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that is literally the most time consuming aspect of any book we have written, because there is a universe of information about any one of these, and there's so many different ways of doing it. Sometimes at the end of it, I feel like, oh man, there's that one important piece, but I'm running out of pages. I can't fit it, and I have to let it go. But you're right. And I think it's thinking from a child's point of view. So really putting on the lens of a little kid, you know, who's let's say 6 years old, 7 years old, what amount of information would work for them? And I think I do it inherently now because I've been teaching that age group for so long. I have in-person experience with them for over 10 years, but that's kind of where I go. I really try to pull in from what I think is going to be enough for a 6 or 7 year old to know, and when is it going to become too much? But it's literally my toughest challenge is cutting down the information.
Right, I imagine there's so much there, like figuring out what are the important parts. But like you said, you don't want it to be too overwhelming, or they're just going to tune out. Yeah. So, and how do you decide which festivals? I mean, like we said, they're not all festivals. We've got wedding, you've got different cities like Mumbai and Delhi. But how do you decide what you're going to do next? Is it like these were your favorites when you were growing up, or these are things that your readers are asking for? How do you pick?
It's a combination of both of those things. So some of them, so when we first started, Diwali was a national choice. It is the most famous festival. Holi was the next festival because it makes sense, right? But then when we look, Mumbai was entirely Vivek, because that's the city he was born and raised. And he's like, you're writing this book. I don't care if nobody buys it. Thankfully, but that was like his passion project, right? Delhi, because I lived in a small city. I was born and raised in a small city in India, but it was close enough from Delhi. And I have these wonderful memories of each year we would take a vacation, and sometimes we would go to Delhi, and I would check out all the old buildings. The modern part of Delhi held less charm for me, but the ancient history, it just always spoke to me so much. So I had to write about Delhi. Then we went on to festivals like Navratri. Why? Because, well, I'm a Bengali. So I'm from the eastern part of India. And my culture celebrates that whole Navratri festival in a different way. But so that was important to me. So we do kind of go with that, but also in terms of what are people looking for. Mythology, I love. So both Krishna's birthday and Ganesha's birthday, they have delightful stories in them. And it's so fun to tell, you know, the little kids, and Krishna, they love, because baby Krishna has a lot of slightly naughty stories.
Right.
He'll
Yes.
go sneak butter, and oh my gosh, kids love that because they're like, all right,
Of course.
this is like grown-ups are actually talking about it. It's okay to be a little naughty.
Right.
They love that. So that's why we did mythology. So yeah, it's essentially, and then we dug deeper into, let's say, so I'm not religious, but I was born in a Hindu family, and so
Right.
that culture is kind of, I grew up with it, right? But then
Right.
if I look at my childhood experiences, and I've shared this a lot in my personal accounts as well, about how the Muslim culture, what impact did it have on me? I grew up in a city which is like half and half, right? And there have been good moments, and there have been moments that haven't been so good. But in the midst of it, it's been such impactful incidents in my life. I
Sure.
had to talk about Ramadan. There's just no way I could not write about it.
Right.
Similarly for Vaisakhi, we had a lot of Sikh people in my neighborhood. My best friend was Sikh. And so there are these, so I felt comfortable writing about these things, even though I didn't
Right.
necessarily grow up in that culture. Yes, that's the Vaisakhi book.
Uh-huh.
And so I took on from sort of my life experiences, I guess, to some extent as well. And those all have given us, so far, there's so much to take from that we haven't run out of topics.
Yes, I think you have a lot to write about. And just to go back to your points about writing about Ramadan and Vaisakhi, I think one of the things that you do a great job of highlighting is how diverse India is. Obviously, you're writing from your own experiences, but you always include, you know, whatever the festival is, you talk about like how, but you know what, in this part of India, they actually do this. And in this part of India, they do this. Or, you know, most of us, I think in the US, we tend to think about India, we think Hindu. And we don't know much about Sikhism. We, you know, maybe we don't associate Muslims with India. And so the fact that you included those books, I think is just so important just for raising people's awareness. Like, oh yeah, that's India too. India is so diverse. And I think we really don't think about that. So I love that you talk about that in terms of what holidays you've been talking about, but even just within each festival, just saying, oh, but not everybody does it the same way. Sometimes it's a little different. And so that's a kind of diversity, you know, we don't even necessarily touch on. I think that's one of the wonderful things about books. And you don't just do books. Like we kind of talked about how you started, but you're still doing those classes and the story times. And when you're able to do author visits, I'm assuming, I don't know, are you still doing that right now, or is that kind of on hold? But I know you incorporate dance, right, when you do your author visit. Can you talk a little bit more about what else you have in addition to books?
Absolutely. My gosh, we do too many things sometimes, I feel. But yeah, so I call them dancing bookworms, right? And this is where my colliding worlds of dance and books comes into like the perfect, you know, form, if you will. So, you know, I can go into a class full of kids and I can read my book and I can tell them the stories, and it's super fun. But then when I ask them to stand up, I put on some music and we dance the story of the book using our bodies. Oh my gosh, the experience that they get and how much they enjoy it. And they truly internalize it because they're using their bodies to do it. And so I love doing that format. It is something I've been now doing for a very long time. Super successful. Kids love it because they don't have to sit still for very long. And, you know, they love doing that. Since the pandemic, the virtual author visits, the number that I do has like gone through the roof. I've done it for schools around the country. I've done it for corporates, especially around the festival time. That's been one silver lining of the pandemic, is now I'm doing gigs literally around the country because everybody's open to virtual formats more. It's amazing. And I still do my classes, which are, again, always a combination of dances and stories. And it's the same thing. All of our classes used to be in Chicago. And now I literally have students around the country who have, actually, I have a lot of the students who have been dancing with me since the pandemic started. So it's been a year and a half. And they're still coming back to me, you know, session after session. And it's so wonderful. But yeah, what other things that we have? A cultural group YouTube channel, of course, which has a lot of the similar stuff. It's got songs and dances and recipes and craft ideas. Just many different ways. Teachers love that. They love to have that resource for them. I do a monthly story time for kids, and it's been amazing. So we have about, I want to say about 2,500 families in that group where I do this. But
Did you say 2,500?
2,500 families in that group, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And a lot of them join every month to do the stories. I just did the Krishna one. I can only take 100 spots in my Zoom, and all 100 spots were gone. Now I have a Ganesha one coming this Saturday. It is so wonderful. And you know, my favorite part are always the questions they ask. It's so adorable. The things that their minds start to think when they listen.
Like, what kinds of things do they ask? Like, what surprises you in the questions they have? Yeah.
Sometimes it would be just how deep they were able to analyze the concept. So if I'm talking about something, they would literally go 3 steps down. Why does that happen? Or does this happen? I'm like, how did your brain make all the jumps? It's amazing. Sometimes I've gotten in trouble. There was one day I almost accidentally said that unicorns are not real. And then I was like,
oh no.
I quickly backtracked out of that one. But yeah, I have to be very careful. But yeah, most of the time they're just so sweet. And their ideas, you know, we were talking about castles because I showed them the Delhi book. I talked about Red Fort. And I was like, what do you think a castle is? And she's like, the thing you build with pillows and cushions. And I'm like, of course, you know, it's like, that's all she thinks when she thinks of
right.
that it's so innocent. So yeah, there's some like funny answers. There are some very like, yeah, there's some very perceptive questions, which I'm always like,
that's wonderful. And it's nice to see that they're so engaged with it, that they're really thinking it through what they're talking about. That's wonderful. So what's next? So I thought I can't remember if I saw this on Facebook or Instagram. You were announcing about the next book and how you got some draft pictures. So I can't remember. Have you said what it is, or can you tell us what the next book is about?
It is still a mystery. I'm announcing it yet.
No, I was hoping I'd get you to talk about it. Oh, too bad.
It is going to be my 13th book. I'm going to post more mysterious content about it on my account, and I'll do a reveal very soon. But I'm so excited about it. Talk about starting with like a mammoth amount of information and boiling it down. This book is going to be an example of that, but that's all I will tell you.
And when can we expect it? When do you think it'll be finished?
Oh my gosh, Vivek is asking me this question every day. Hopefully, it should definitely be out by the end of this month. That would be my guess. I hope so.
Oh, that's great. That's not too far. I can make it. I can maybe make it that long. Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us today. This was so much fun. It is so, and you know what's fun talking to you is you can just see that enthusiasm that comes across in everything they're doing, the classes, the videos, and the books. That enthusiasm for the Indian culture, it just really comes through, and I can just see it so well in talking with you. This was so much fun. And for everybody that's watching, if you tuned in late, don't worry, we're going to be having this up on our IGTV and on our YouTube, so you'll be able to watch the whole thing. And next week, like I said, we'll be talking with Amanda of Miss Panda Chinese, another great book series that promotes Chinese culture. So thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. And if I might just say, if parents, educators, if you're all listening, please, please, please continue to explore new cultures. Don't stop at what you're already comfortable in. Go check out new books. Go check out new content. You've got to be able to give a view of the entire world to the kids because they need to know how people live everywhere. So
yes, what a great message.
Kids.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And everybody, be sure to go, if you aren't already following her, go follow her page, Culture Group Kids, and you'll find all the information about the books, the author visits, the story times. It's all there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.